So our first presenter today is Jose Silva, who's a fiduciary financial advisor who's been serving our area for over 18 years. After many years of working at several large brokerage firms, Jose was inspired by a different type of advisor, a fiduciary, someone who's legally obligated to act in the best interest of his clients. He then established his own independent fiduciary practice, which is Silva Fiduciary Advisors. Jose focuses on helping families and individuals with different goals and needs, from saving for their first home, paying for college, and preparing for retirement, to just feeling more secure about their money. He's passionate about knowing each client and their family on a personal level. So without any further ado, let's welcome Jose Silva.
So first of all, thank you. Thank you very much for coming. The estate planning is a very important part, of course, of financial planning. Well, that's why we have an expert, Brian Sieber, that's going to be talking about that part. With financial planning and my approach as a fiduciary advisor, of course, nobody's an expert on everything, and I'm certainly not. But what I try to do is bring in experts for clients, experts in different fields. For example, estate planning, also tax planning, insurance planning. And then what I do is pretty much take care of the big umbrella that includes all those different parts. We're going to be talking about identify certain tools, certain areas of financial planning that will pertain to you. Not everything pertains to everyone, of course. So identify those areas of financial planning and estate planning where you can take action to improve your financial position and peace of mind. Quick overview is what is a financial plan. Then to understand what's your current position, financial position. Then set financial goals. Talk about how to time this Social Security, which is critical. Manage risk, investment planning, make your money work for you. You can work very hard, but if your money's not working for you, you're gonna fall behind. And at the end, wrap it up with a one-page financial plan. What is your current financial situation or position? That's the first real step. And then start looking at the goals. You got to stop where where are you? What is your current financial situation? And then of course the strategies and steps that you need to take. It's logical, but it's not commonly done. Understanding where you stand is the first step to knowing where you can go. It's not knowing where you want to go. It's where you can, and then we'll talk about where you want to go in a little bit. So net worth, what you own is basically what you own out of everything that you might own, and then you subtract with what you owe. Where your money, first of all, how much are you receiving? What's your total income? What are the different income sources? That's your inflow, your full-time, part-time employment. You add your Social Security, any maybe interest from accounts, and if you have rental properties or any kind of rental. Commercial real estate, any of those things that are generating cash, that's going to be part of your cash inflow. And then your outflow would include mortgage payments, rent payments, all your expenses, insurance, medical insurance, including food, gas, adding all those up and see at the end, hopefully you have some positive cash flow. The cash flow that we just saw, that's a historic. Where has your money been going? Where has your money been going in the past? And now the budget is from here, where do you want to go? What do you want to be spending? How do you want to be spending it? So it's not a straitjacket. It's really you telling you what to do. There's this rule, and again, it's a rule of thumb. It's not supposed to be exact, but the 50-30-20 rule, where you, in general, should have about 50% of your needs, your expenses should be for needs, and then 30% for wants, and then 20% for savings and investments. Okay, and then from there, you want to take a look at where you're at by looking at your cash flow, looking at your net worth, creating a budget. Okay, those are to start off. And now is like, okay, what do you want to do? What's important to you? What kind of goals? Once you understand your current financial position, you reflect on your values. Well, what's important to you? Is it travel? Is it more education? Whatever that is, you need to prioritize, and that's what you're going to include in your plan. Also take a look at short-term, medium-term, and longer-term goals. What does financial independence mean to you? And maybe it's just you don't have to worry about, you don't have to work anymore and live the lifestyle that you want. Again, you have to define that. It's always going to be a very personal thing, a very personal definition of all the different areas that we're looking at. So the emergency fund, you've all, I'm sure, thought about that, maybe have one, heard about it. Why would you have an emergency fund? Well, many things can happen, right? You can lose your job, depending on that. You have medical problems that now require more expenses, car or home repairs that you weren't expecting, or maybe a relative or family member in need and you want to help them out. It would be extremely hard, if not just plain impossible, to live off your Social Security. But it is important as a supplement to what you might be able to have saved and invested and everything else. So it's guaranteed. A great thing. It's guaranteed for life. As I mentioned, it should be a supplement, not a replacement of pre-retirement income. Another good thing about Social Security is that it has the cost of living adjustment. Another thing about the Social Security is that it can become taxable. A lot of people don't know that, and then discover it when they have to file for their taxes. And the way that happens is if you're working while you're still receiving Social Security and making, let's say if you're single, making over $25,000 a year, then you begin, part of your Social Security income becomes taxable. So when to start receiving, that's usually the big question. It's not like, oh, I want to receive it as soon as I can. I'll take it, at 62, which is where normally you could take it. That's early retirement. But if you begin to take it at 62, then you're going to be penalized. You're going to get less, and that'll be for the rest, of your life that you're taking Social Security. The full retirement age, what they consider where you're getting all your benefits from Social Security, is around 66, 67, depending on when you were born. And then the maximum, to get the maximum income, is to wait till you're 70. So in general, you want to delay receiving your Social Security because you're going to get more. You can max out if you wait till you're 70. Another thing is if you start to receive Social Security because you absolutely need to, and then things change, and you have now more income, or you have other sources, you can put it on pause and then wait as long as you can, and again, you'll set this increase, 8% increase again, you see? So there's some flexibility there, and that's an important thing to know. In deciding this, again, you have to take a close look at what your needs are. If there are no other sources of income and you gotta have those funds, well then you're gonna be forced to take it. And then term or whole life, that's another important, question. Which one should I get? Well, whole life, the couple of the most important differences is whole life is something you invest in for usually most of your life. Although you can stop, but normally you keep on investing, and it will have a cash value, meaning after 10 or 20 years, it'll be worth something. It'll have a value, and it's got an investment value within it. Whereas term, you're going to pay for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and it's going to cover you for X amount. But after the term is over, 10, 15, 20 years or whatever, you get nothing. So then there's long-term care insurance. You know that none of us like to think about nursing homes or even an assisted care, but many of us will be needing some kind of care, whether it's in-home assistance or assisted living facilities, or even the dreaded nursing home. Long-term insurance, it's going to help. It's not going to cover all your expenses there. And it's not just, you have to have the funds to be able to obtain this kind of insurance. You need to have that kind of cash flow, because again, it's not cheap. If there's a family history of different chronic illnesses, dementia, and any of those very highly debilitating illnesses, then that is another very important reason to consider long-term care. Investing is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not something that you try to do within a few months or even a couple of years. This is definitely longer term. Right there, a very important concept is the time that you have it and compound interest. So you can see here, at first, you've got your principal, $1,000, let's say you've invested. And then if you have interest, if it's not compounding, like a CD or a bond is just paying you a set amount of interest, then it could increase by a certain amount, not by much. But once you have compound interest, where you got interest over interest over interest, then it becomes very, very powerful in how much it could increase. In this case, looking at 10% for 20 years. What is your comfort with risk? What does that mean? That if you got $100,000 invested and in a portfolio that's, let's say, moderate to aggressive, meaning that it's going to go up and down, quite a bit, would you be comfortable if that $100,000 drops to $90,000? But it has the potential of going up to 115 or 120. Here, if we look at the green right here, the green bars, this is the S&P 500, which again are the 500 largest companies in America. And usually when you talk about the market, people go, the market this, the market that. They're talking about the S&P 500 normally. So that's the green, and that's what they've done, the returns every year, the 5 last years, 2020 to 2024. And then the purple right here is a portfolio of 60%. 60% of the portfolio is in stocks. Now, the stocks, of course, are the ones that are going to move. They're going to, move up and down, and at the end they can make you a lot of money. But they can be aggressive, meaning again they could go up and down a lot. So with this purple right here, that's the S&P. This is it's got 60% stocks and 40% bonds. And bonds are they're safer. They're more conservative. So this is very typical of like a moderate portfolio right here. And that's the purple right here. And then you have the 30-70, which means there's only 30% stocks and 70% bonds, which is a lot more stable, which is the orange. And finally, this looks like purple as well, a light purple, is 100% bonds. And here it's just another way of looking at this now in a chart. With more risk, more volatility, you have higher potential returns. So you have this, the green, this is the market, all stocks, all right? And then we have the 60-40 portfolio that I mentioned, which is moderate, like down the middle, which is this purple right here. Doesn't do as much, doesn't do as well. And then you have the 30-70, which is even more conservative, which is this one over here, this orange. And then finally, the bonds. Meaning you don't have to pay taxes now, but you will in the future when you begin to take the money out. When you begin to withdraw funds or take distributions, that's when you begin to pay taxes. And what taxes are those? Those are income taxes. So that's added to your income tax line, your total income line in your 1040. The good thing about the traditional IRA is it is tax deductible. You can take whatever you've contributed in that year and whatever year, and it will directly reduce your taxable income. I wanted to make with you in this seminar is to leave you with certain areas, tools, concepts that hopefully you can use in your own lives, in your own finances. I mentioned there are financial plans that literally go hundreds of pages. That's unnecessary, and not just unnecessary, it's not very useful. Who's going to sit down and go over 100 pages of numbers?
Brian Sieber is an attorney with 45 years of experience, and after practicing in many areas of civil law in 4 states, now specializes in probate law, including drafting estate planning documents with a view towards avoiding probate. He will share useful information about wills, trusts, durable powers of attorney, and healthcare surrogate designations, and brings a Catholic perspective to a discussion of these important issues. He's active in several charitable organizations, including as chair of the Salvation Army for Volusia and Flagler counties, the Knights of Columbus, and Pathway Mentoring for Incarcerated Youth. He's also an active member, along with his wife Lynn, of Our Lady of Lourdes in Daytona Beach, where he serves on the parish council.
Okay, so Jose has laid out a very important part of estate planning. The insurance, the financial part of it is something which is part of the overall approach. But there's something in common between what Jose was talking about and the legal part of it, which is what I want to address, which is that the planning does not focus merely on end of life or what we're going to have when it's all over. There is a component to the legal part of estate planning, just like there is for the insurance and financial, that has to do with that time of life that's towards the end, but not at the end. Healthcare documentation has 2 parts to it. The living will is by far the less important part. The more important part is the designation of healthcare surrogate, because that's the piece of paper that answers the question, if I can't answer questions about my healthcare, who can do that for me? If you only had one or the other of these two components, the one to have would be the designation of healthcare surrogate, because that person can then make decisions about any kind of healthcare issue, including how aggressive healthcare should be. But the other time that you might need a healthcare surrogate designation would be if you go in to have a cardiac catheterization, for example, and an hour into the process, the doctor needs to go running out to say, I found something that while I'm in there, I need to be able to address, but I can't ask your mother because she's under. Show me the documentation that would let you answer this question for her because she cannot. So a healthcare surrogate designation can have importance for an hour, or it could have importance for the last 10 years of someone's life. But it's important to have it, and that can happen to a person of any age. The way to answer how decisions are to be made for finances is a durable power of attorney. So the word power of attorney, we know what that means. It lets someone else act on my behalf if I cannot. The durable part of it reflects the fact that it used to be that powers of attorney were only effective while the person had capacity, which of course is the exact opposite of what we really, really need. So a durable power of attorney, that word durable means that it continues in effectiveness even when the person has lost capacity. It really should be, especially when the person has lost capacity. A durable power of attorney, by the way, ends at the death of the person who gives the authority. Zero in on how we don't insult our children. Okay, so if you have 3 children, let's say, and the issue is, okay, so what name are we going to put on there? So for married people or people in a committed relationship, it may well be obvious that the person names the spouse or the person in a committed relationship with them. Frequently that would be the case. Second tier, though, would be children. And you'll hear a fair number of people who say, well, I don't want to insult the others by naming only one. My strong advice is against that thought, because if there's a committee approach and we're in the hallway at the hospital and the doctor comes running out and says, here's the issue, here are the choices, what do we do? When the argument erupts, the answer is we do nothing until the argument's finished. So I strongly recommend that you stand up to the issue and name not the committee, but a pecking order. In what order, if this one is available, that's the person who makes the decision. If not, then number 2. If there's a third person, then maybe number 3. You can have as many as you want, but what you really want to avoid is that in the hallway we need to come to some agreement. That doesn't mean that the person who's named first can't ask his or her siblings or other people what their opinion about what should be done is, but it means that if there's not an argument and the doctor's staring at the person, that there's going to be one person who can give the answer. So HIPAA is too frequently used as a way of avoiding interacting with other members of the family than the patient, and that can frequently be a very poor solution. So when we talk about what forms there are that are available to communicate these decisions, I try not to make changes to the forms that we're going to discuss, except for that. On all my forms I put, notwithstanding whether I have capacity or not, I authorize and direct my treating healthcare professionals to release the information to those people who are named on this designation. If you go to any emergency room waiting room in Florida, you'll see in the stuff that's hanging on the wall for you to pass the 7 hours while you wait to get seen, that there's a copy of the 2-page form that the Florida Bar has devised, the first page of which is the healthcare surrogate designation, and the second page of which is the living will. It takes 3 minutes to fill it out. In Florida, healthcare documents need to be witnessed by 2 people. At least one of them cannot be a blood relative or spouse. It does not need to be notarized, and they're never recorded. So it can be done right there in the waiting room. There are many, many people who think that I need to have a do not resuscitate order, because if I don't, then doctors and hospitals are just going to do procedures that don't need to be done. That's not the case. A DNR, first of all, in Florida, has to be on yellow paper. If it's not on yellow paper, it's ineffective, except in the hospital, where it has to be on red paper. If it's not on red paper in the hospital, it's not effective. So what's the point of that nonsense? It's because they have a limited usefulness for particular situations where both the doctor and the patient, or someone on the patient's behalf, signs a piece of paper that says, yes, at this time, this person is confronting healthcare issues that are so traumatic that if a heart attack happens right this minute, there's no point resuscitating the person from the heart attack, so 3 weeks later they can die from pancreatic cancer. That's the point of it. The financial document is going to answer approximately the same question: who's going to act in financial matters if I cannot? A durable power of attorney can exist if an older person just doesn't want to be bothered with paying bills and doing that kind of thing any longer. A durable power of attorney is a very good tool to let someone else assist or take over to the degree that the person wants that to be the case. I want to mention that in 2011, which is now already 13, 14 years ago, there was a change in the law in Florida. So if you have a durable power of attorney that was written prior to 2011, it is outdated. The difference is that prior to 2011, or let's put it this way, since 2011, a direction to a bank, for example, to open an account, write a check, whatever that a durable power of attorney holder can give under that power, is not immediately effective unless the bank wants it to be, except in the situation where the document has initialing next to the paragraph that gives that authority. Okay, so we've talked about healthcare issues. We've talked about financial issues when the client is not in a position or doesn't want to manage them on their own. So now we're going to move to the third of the large topics, which is what happens at the time of my death? How is property going to be distributed? So normally speaking, we know that a will is going to answer this question, but there are other ways to answer this question, and they tend to fall under the category of probate avoidance. So I'm a lawyer and I make my living off of doing probate cases, but I haven't done a good job for a client if I've set things up in such a way that a probate case is necessary. There are ways to set things up so that probate cases are not necessary, and that really ought to be not only the client's goal, but also the attorney's goal. So the most obvious way is for assets to be titled not only in the client's name. If there's only one person in ownership of real estate, of a bank account, of a vehicle, of assets like that, and that person dies, then the only way to move the title from the deceased person to where it's supposed to go is with a probate case. On the other hand, if there were joint names on that asset, it would move automatically upon the death of one of those persons who's named in the title. Another way to handle that, if not having co-ownership, is a pay on death or beneficiary designation. They all three accomplish exactly the same thing. People who are not married can own property jointly, but with a right of survivorship. So my brother and I, or my wife and I, could own something together as joint tenants with right of survivorship. That means if one dies, the other owns all of it. Nothing needs to happen legally to make that occur. Tenancy by the entireties is a similar result. It is only available to those who are married, and it means it's a legal fiction that both spouses own all of a given asset. That's what the word entireties means in that name. So your home, if you're married, ought to be titled either, John Smith and Mary Smith, comma, husband and wife, or comma, as tenants by the entireties, to convey that. For gay marriages, that way of owning was not open to them until the Supreme Court case in 2015, the Obergefell versus Hodges decision, which applies now that same theory not only to traditional marriage but also to gay marriage. It sets out what the distribution plan is. In doing so, it may be that there's a beneficiary in mind. However, that person is not the right person to be controlling assets. It may not be healthy for him or her to be doing so. So for families that are impacted by addiction, for example, it may well be that someone who ought to inherit nevertheless is not the right person for a lot of money to drop into his or her lap, so that there is a way in a will to say, so-and-so has the use of it, but not the management of it. There's going to be another person who will do that for him or her, therefore being protected by a gift in trust. That's not a revocable trust, which we're about to come to in a moment. That's a testamentary trust built into a will. I want to be very clear about how things are, because disputes about wills are costly, and the more clear, first of course, it needs to be established, period. Not having a will is just going to leave a lot of room for disputes, but it needs to be set out exactly what you have in mind so as to avoid the cost of fighting about it. The person who makes these things happen is called a person representative. We do not use the term executor in Florida any longer. Probate case costs a minimum of $3,500 these days. Can cost a lot more than that, depending on what issues there are, or what kind of the assets might be. And it provides for a way for a court to be supervising what the person representative is doing, especially if there's some disagreement. I'm not letting you sign all of this stuff until you tell me that you've called the insurance company and Morgan Stanley and verified that the beneficiary designations are what you think they are. And 10%, 20% of the time, the answer was no. Put assets in joint names. Deed property to children, reserving life estate.